Now into the content. Denver kind of already hinted at it. Today, we're going away from the college basketball for a little bit because we've been doing a lot of that over the last couple of weeks. And in the interim, there's a lot that's happened in NBA trade / free agency stuff, and then a lot in the NFL realm as well. So I do believe Denver flipped a coin in his head and landed on NBA.
Yep.
So we're going to start there. Do you have anything you'd like to say before we jump in, Denver?
It was a crazy, I think, Friday before 3 p.m. It's been even a little crazier since. It's not on here, but we got to mention LaMarcus Aldridge was bought out by the Spurs and has agreed to sign to the Brooklyn Nets. I assume he'll play on the bench or come off the bench, but that's fairly huge news. As me and Dierks discussed before the podcast, he's a big name, just like Blake Griffin. So there's some name recognition there, which makes it a little bit more intriguing to see how the Nets do.
There were some other buyouts that aren't going to be on this list. Andre Drummond is on
Andre
there.
Drummond was one of them.
I feel like there was one more big name, but I'm struggling to think of it off the top of my head.
Those are the two you really need to know anyway.
All right, perfect. He said it. We're just gonna throw it to the graphic. Now we could talk on all of these. I don't know that we absolutely have to. I think we can touch on kind of the big ones. Yep. The first one was definitely an impactful one, I think, for at least one of the teams involved, right? Houston got rid of Oladipo. You know, he's only been there for a couple of months. Yeah, and they sent Oladipo to Miami for Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, and then there was some draft compensation, I do believe. But that's to be expected. It's the NBA. They throw around picks like they're candy at a parade, dude.
Yeah, the fun fact for you, the Thunder have like 34 picks in the next like 10 years or something
34
crazy.
in the next 7.
Oh, 7. Oh, my bad.
They have 17 Jesus. First and 17 second round picks between now and 2028.
Stupid.
That's wild, is what that is.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think this is nice for the Heat, right? Obviously, the Heat kind of had a rough start to the season. I know that much, and they've been ramping it up lately. They're now up to, I think, like sixth or fifth in the East, making a run up to that top 4 seeding. Maybe they wanna defend the title. I think they do. Gonna be tough, but
yeah. Well, and here's the reality of the situation, right? We knew going into the first trade for Victor Oladipo in the season, his original intent was to go to Miami, right? So Miami was like, hey, Houston, what can we offer you to get Victor Oladipo? And at the beginning of the season, Houston was like, we want Tyler Hero and a couple other players, but Tyler Hero was the focus of the trade, right? And then you get to the trade deadline and you get Victor Oladipo for Avery Bradley and Kelly Olynyk. Come on. What a weak trade. Miami. What? How do I word this?
Fleeced them.
What?
I would say they fleeced them.
Yes, finessed. Well, however you want to word it, finessed the Houston.
Well, obviously,
Rockets.
Houston has absolutely sucked. They went on that 20. Did it end at 20? I don't even know.
20, yep.
20-game losing streak. It's very evident at this point. Houston's just gonna ride it out with a whole bunch of pretty much no names, except for John Wall and Christian Wood if he's back from injury. I actually don't know if he's back yet.
Yeah, he's back.
And a whole bunch of who even knows until the end of the season. They're probably just going to say F it and go for the number 1 overall pick, or at least the number 1 overall like odds for the pick, obviously in the lottery, because they suck. So they lost kind of all, leverage in this trade. That so much time had gone by. It was very evident that Houston doesn't need a Tyler Hero or whatever to like make a run or anything, because they can't make a run. They've won like 12 games all season. It's just kind of pathetic.
Yeah. Moving on. The next big set of players was Kyle Lowry and Lonzo Ball. I feel like we should definitely talk about these two.
Yeah,
Kyle
for sure.
Lowry was in trade talks all week, really. No one knew if he was staying in Toronto. Kyle Lowry, on the day of the trade deadline, it was like the Sixers, the Lakers, the Heat were involved, and at one point the Clippers were even involved. I think it's easy to point out why he stayed in Toronto. It's because the Toronto asking price for him was huge. I know for the Lakers side, because I'm a huge Lakers fan, they wanted like KCP. They wanted.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with his salary, right? You have to match salary to a certain extent, and Kyle Lowry obviously gets paid a butt ton at this point in his career compared to his production. That's not to say Kyle Lowry's a bad player, but I mean he's one of the probably like the top 25 players in the NBA.
Yeah. And so the thing about Kyle Lowry is he stays. And the report now is that the Raptors are looking to do a sign and trade in the offseason because he is a free agent this year to get Kyle Lowry kind of his last maybe big payday or something relatively close. But as of right now, Kyle Lowry stayed. The next big one is Lonzo Ball. Now, Lonzo Ball's been playing fairly well this year, and he could be a huge asset to several teams. Yes, on Friday it was the Clippers were asking about him. The Bulls actually made a super huge push for him, but decided not to. And then the New York Knicks.
He's still in New Orleans, correct?
Correct, yes. Okay. So all three of those teams could have used him. The Bulls were coming off another big trade we'll talk about later. So adding him would have been a good way to cap off the day. The Knicks have been playing fairly well. Now, that was up until probably last night when Mitchell Robinson fractured his foot and is going to be out for the season.
That's tough.
So he's staying in New Orleans. He's a restricted free agent this offseason. So someone's going to end up offering him pretty big money. I assume he's going to the Bulls, but he's staying in New Orleans right now. So that I was surprised he was in trade talks on Friday. I thought he was doing really well, and I'm surprised that New Orleans even kind of considered the trading him, you know. So if you have any input on these two players.
No, the big ones, right, is I heard a lot of Kyle Lowry wants to go home, and he's a Philly guy, so I heard that he could have potentially wanted to force a trade. If he was getting traded, he wanted to force it to be to the Sixers. And then Ball to the Bulls has been a thing that I've been hearing a lot too, on the various social networks and TV shows. But obviously none of those happened. It's kind of just a fart in the wind.
Yeah. We'll skip really the Hawks Rondo Lou Will trade. Lou Will, you know, I thought it's an okay trade. Nothing too major. Lou Will's thinking about retiring now. He doesn't want to be in Atlanta. The Raptors did clean house, kind of. They sent Norman Powell to the Blazers for Gary Trent and Rodney
And apparently he had a massive debut last night.
He did.
All I saw, there was like a headline that was like, Blazers fans want to retire Norm Powell's number.
Yep.
And he's played one game.
It's
an absolute
insane.
legend.
The next real big trade is this Magic. Talk about cleaning house, the Orlando Magic.
Oh, the Magic just decided, do you want a player? You get a player. You get a player. You get a player. You all get players.
The first trade we'll talk about is they traded Evan Fournier to the Celtics for draft picks. That's pretty big. The Celtics need a shooter. They need a guard. They finesse the Magic in this. Because I believe the picks are only second-round picks and maybe one like first-round pick in like 4 years. But that is what it is. I think it's a good pick for the Celtics, who kind of reshaped their team a little bit. Got rid of Daniel Tice, as we see in the next one. So how do you feel about Evan Fournier? I know you're not a big NBA guy anymore. So,
well, I mean, I still pay attention. I obviously know who Evan Fournier is, and that I mean, he's kind of a bucket. He'll get you in that. I assume he's probably still around that 17 to 20 points a game range.
Yep, somewhere in there, yeah.
And I mean, so for the Celtics, you hear a lot about Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So the bulk of their punch right now is in the front court. So getting a backcourt option obviously probably was high on their list. With, I believe Kemba was not kind of living up to what they hoped, so they needed to get him a running mate.
Yeah, because they had Jeff Teague back there kind of playing behind. I think he's probably on here somewhere. Jeff Teague went somewhere. But yep, the next one, Cavs trade JaVale McGee to the Nuggets. McGee's been on 3 different teams now in the last year. The Raptors traded Terrence Davis to the Kings for future draft picks. Brad Wanamaker's gone from the Hornets. Raptors again.
We do have to backtrack just a little bit. I do have some Nuggets insider information on the JaVale McGee trade.
Yeah, what's that?
This is straight from the source. We'll also have more. Can we combine 2 things really quickly so I only have to pull this up once?
Yep.
We're going to skip down here to the Magic trade Erin Gordon and Gary Clark to the Nuggets for Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, and draft picks. All right, we got Nuggets insider Jay Sway and one.
Oh my God!
In the DMs, shout out to the boy Justin Searing. He thinks it's actually a good trade for what the Nuggets gave up. He's talking to the Erin Gordon trade on this one. We basically get a replacement for an aging Paul Millsap, and all we lost is Gary Harris, who's been disappointing and losing his starring role. RJ Hampton, who's a good talent, but just won't find enough minutes in Denver. And our first isn't worth much anyway. He ends it with JaVale trade trash, though.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I mean, I agree with him. I very much agree with him. JaVale McGee. I mean, wasn't he a walking meme for like the first 4 years he was with the Nuggets?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember when he garnered the nickname Tragic Bronson, but it could have been around that time.
So yeah, we'll just skip to the Erin Gordon trade. I thought the Magic, that was the real clean house moment for them. I know they traded Nikola Vucevic earlier in the day, but when they traded Erin Gordon, I was like, wow, they are really either trying to tank, which is probably what they're doing, or they really want to recenter who their franchise is around. I think Erin Gordon's a good talent. I think he's kind of a one-trick pony sometimes. He's not much of a shooter. He's more of a post player, dunker, athlete type guy. So if he can develop that shot, outside, he will definitely be overall good. I don't find it a bad trade at all. I just find Erin Gordon to be like, not how I see bigs in the NBA today who can shoot with more consistency. Not saying he can't, but he needs to develop the shot just a little bit more.
The one thing I do like about it is now you have like 2 ultra athletic guys in the front court beside Jokic.
Mm-hmm.
You know how I think what is it? MPJ is a starter, right?
Yeah, in and out.
Or he plays a fairly considerable amount of minutes. So now there's a world in which you get a pretty considerable chunk of minutes for Michael Porter Jr. and Erin Gordon, when both those guys are just athletic as shit. And so that's something that you kind of need in your other front court guys, especially with a dude who, and I'll give Jokic a lot of credit, he looks a lot better in the athletic kind of department this year. He's obviously spent a lot of time on it, but obviously he's a little bit of a bigger, slower guy. That's just, it is what it is. And the more athleticism you can pair with him in that front court, I think the better. So getting that replacement, as our boy Justin said, for Paul Millsap, that's kind of invaluable at this point,
Yeah, and we'll talk about the next trade that the Magic did. Also, shout out Justin, thanks for your input. We appreciate it. The next trade that the Magic did was the Nikola Vucevic, Farouk Aminu.
Why
and
can you
Otto
not
Porter.
say that name?
What? Vucevic?
Vucevic.
Vucevic? Because I'm not from like wherever the hell he's from.
You're
Okay?
not from an Eastern European country. That's kind of rude
Exactly.
to say.
Exactly. Farouk Aminu and Otto Porter to the Bulls for Wendell Carter and some draft picks. I guess. I mean, if you want to clean house, might as well start somewhere and start with Nikola. I think it's a good trade. I think he'll be really like this year. I don't see the Bulls, competing at all.
I don't know where they are. Honest to God, are they still in the? I can pull that up while you're talking. If they're still in even the hunt to make the playoffs at all, or
yeah, I don't think they are. But the point of the I'm making is probably next season. Him, Zach LaVine, maybe
Lonzo
get a Lonzo
Ball.
Ball, and like that's pretty. There's a stat out there. Lonzo Ball's made more threes than Trae Young and several other key players. I mean, the Bulls are still really in the hunt.
Yeah, they're there.
They're there, and with the new playoff format, the 8 and 9 seed play each other.
No, I got this right the last time, and you said it wrong. I'm gonna take back my honor. The 7 seed plays the 10 seed, and the 8 seed plays the 9 seed, and I believe the winners of those. I don't know if it's one game or a series. I think it's something like if the lower seed wins. I think it's if the lower seed wins the first game, it's a best of 3 or some shit like that. Or the lower seed has to win 2 games. The top seed only has to win 1 or something like that.
Yeah. So they're technically in the hunt.
They would be in the playoffs technically if it started today. If you consider that play-in as part of the playoffs.
Well, I count it. They're technically in the playoffs right now.
Count it and 1.
But like I say, in a year, they're probably going to be somewhere in the playoffs. They're going to be a lower seed, obviously, but I think they have a lot of talent. I think they're starting to shape up what they want their future to look like, and it's really centered around Zach LaVine. So that was really the big news over the NBA draft. You can see the final one, George Hill to the Thunder. That was a 3-team trade, but we're not going to talk about that.
That was
matter.
Yeah.
But that was the NBA trade deadline. There was 16 teams involved. There was like 43 personnel changes. Adrian Wojnarowski tweeted about it. Shout out to that man. He Woj bombs left
him
and
right.
Shams.
They just keep us involved.
The Sham God. So that was the NBA trade deadline. It was really fun as an NBA fan. A lot more big names were traded this year. Probably due just to teams wanting to rebuild and teams wanting to continue to make that playoff run. I think the second half of the NBA season is going to be awesome, very competitive, and this just has a good outlook for me.
For sure. I think the 2 biggest takeaways that we talked about both toward the beginning and the team at the end here, it's very evident that Houston and Orlando are just kind of chalking it. And it seems as though there might not be a even start date to the rebuild, a real true start date to the rebuild in sight with some of these moves. Obviously, I think Houston is closer since they have guys like John Wall and Christian Wood. But now, who's the Magic's best player now?
Terrence Ross. I am the captain now. If you pull up a tweet, there's a tweet from Terrence Ross after the Erin Gordon trade. It's I can't remember the movie, but
Captain Phillips.
Captain Phillips, and Tom Hanks' ship is getting pillaged,
I am the captain,
and he goes, I am the captain now. I was like, oh man.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Well, one of these teams getting Cade Cunningham, and he's got great upside. So, Ayu Dosunmu.
Oh crap! One more NBA tidbit. Also, stop looking at the screen. Don't look what I'm doing real quick.
Oh, okay.
This is meant to be a surprise, but I forgot to pull it up. We do have one more small little tidbit if this ever loads on Twitter, please. This is straight from, again, NBA insider Justin Searing.
43, yeah.
We had to include this.
Oh my God.
We had to include this. He wanted this to make it, I think, on our Best of Twitter segment. We're not going to be doing that this week just because we didn't really have the content for it. But it fits right here with the NBA.
Brian Scalabrine. I saw this. It's great.
And we're back after some minor technical difficulties. Not sure what went on there, but we're getting back to it. Again, this is a tweet sent to me from NBA insider Jay Swayan1. And apparently Brian Scalabrine might be making an NBA comeback.
I get in the video. I get in the video.
Context for our audio-only audience. NBA legend Brian Scalabrine, most notably formerly of the Boston Celtics championship team of 2007? 7.
Yeah.
One of those 2 years, yes. The White Mamba, as it were, was challenged by a random high school kid to a one-on-one game for a pair of shoes. And we'll let this roll with just the kind of crappy audio for the minute that it goes, and then we'll recap.
That's great now. What's the game to? Just whatever. You're going to just dribble around till I get my ass tired. Where you guys playing? Talk to you, Jay. Get that shit out of here. Hey. Oh. Hey. Hey.
You said hit the weight room.
Hey. Baby. Are they playing for kids? Yeah. Oh my
The
And
GOAT.
Brian
NBA
Scalabrine.
2K13, my team legend.
And Brian Scalabrine ended up winning the one-on-one game 11-0. And I really hope he didn't take the kid's shoes, but the kid would absolutely deserve it. I'm not going to lie to you. After pulling some bullshit like that. And so that has been all of our NBA content for the day. Again, shout out to our boy Justin Searing for making a guest appearance in ghost form through me.
Ghost form.
It was quite the thing. Again, we were gonna add that to tweets of the week or best of Twitter, whichever you prefer to call it. The recurring segment that will be again recurring very soon. We just have been so caught up in other things that we have forgot to cultivate some great tweets. We'll work on that for next week.